Ironically, I found myself inside the federal government a few years after leaving American University. Not as a civil servant, but as a salesman of computers and computer services. I was one of thousands of so-called Beltway bandits who aided Washington's spending addiction. My job wasn't to help the federal government, but to exploit it. I was one and the same with Washington. Results didn't matter, only spending did. Long after leaving Washington, I remain haunted by its wastefulness and the misuse of trillions of taxpayer dollars. Of course, I had benefited from Washington's bonanza, but that didn't make me feel any better about having been a parasite, feeding off the country's massive bureaucracy. In 2010, I had an epiphany. It came after reading Startup Nation, the story of Israel's economic miracle. It was one of many examples in the book, but the author's vignette about Intel and the rivalry between Intel R&D in Israel and Intel corporate in the US stuck with me. Intel had done something very difficult. They radically changed how they built microchips. It was a matter of survival that many resisted for a long time. It went against tradition and against the approach Intel had taken since its beginning. The radical change implemented by Intel was called the right turn. It meant they had to give up on old practices to survive. It wasn't easy, but Intel did the impossible and reinvented itself. I borrowed Intel's right turn concept, but because I wanted to approach this topic from an apolitical perspective in my book, I changed right turn to 90-degree turn. The principles that Intel applied in remaking its future can also be applied to the federal government. To have a future in Washington, we must abandon its past. My book puts forward a theory for making this possible and returning value to government.